Welcome back to the channel. This week features one of the craziest sessions of the year, so buckle up.
For the year 2025, I'm trying to make $25 an hour while playing the same amount of hours at both 1-2 and 1-3. After the biggest upswing of my life, I finally hit a bump in the road, so let's see where we stand.
In my last 14 poker sessions, I've played both 1-2 and 1-3 and went on a $5,681 upswing and only had one losing session. I unfortunately got hit with the reality check because in my last session of August, I took a fat loss of $745, which affected our results. As for our 1-2 stats, I played a total of 73 hours and 5 minutes in this game and profited $2,159 for an hourly win rate of $29.54, which is pretty solid. Unfortunately, after that big loss last week, our 1-3 stats took a decent little hit. We've now played 74 hours and 25 minutes in this game and profited $4,506 for an hourly win rate of $60.55. So combining all our stats, I've played a total of 147 hours and 30 minutes of live poker and profited $6,665 for an hourly win rate of $45.19. Pretty fired up about this number, but I'm never going to be content until it's all said and done. So let's try to bounce back after a tough week by heading out to the nicest card room in Northern California, which is none other than Stone's Gambling Hall. But before we dive into this week's poker sessions, I gotta announce that I'm teaming up with the Left Pocket Bankroll app. It's an easy to use app that keeps track of all your poker stats and gives a ton of great feedback. I've been super pleased with all the different features, so do yourself a favor and get a 1-month free trial on me by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code on your screen. We buy into the 1-3 match stat game for $500, and this table's been running all night, so I'm gonna guarantee you guys big pots, crazy action, and pure chaos, so stay tuned. We got off to a slow start by missing flops with some pretty good hands. We're down around $125 before our first interesting hand of the day. For this one, I'm in early position and look down at 6-5 of hearts, which is good enough for a raise, so I bump up the price of poker to $15. Like I said earlier, this game isn't short of action because 3 people put in the call. Now the small blind puts in a 3-bet to 50, which I thought was pretty small. I figured with this sizing, he either has a big pocket pair and wants action, or has a hand like Ace-Jack and wasn't sure how much to raise. Either way, I'm never folding for only $35 more. I guess the low jack and high jack have the same idea because they put in the call, increasing this pot to $215. Off to a flop 4 ways of 9-6-5 with 2 clubs, giving us bottom 2 pair on a super connected board. The pre-flop aggressor in the small blind starts off with a check, so I think he most likely has a hand like Ace-Queen, and now action's on me. If this was heads up against the small blind, I'd bet super small to try and keep in all those ace-high hands in, but I'm up against 2 other opponents who could very easily have flush draws, combo draws, and even overpairs, so I need to get value and protection as soon as possible. I throw out a bet of $115, just get called by a super action player in the low jack, increasing this pot to $445. He could easily have all those hands I mentioned earlier, so now I'm looking for a low non-club card, and that's exactly what we get in the 3 of hearts, which puts 2 flush draws on the board. I only have around 215 left in my stack. Since this card didn't change anything, I have an easy all-in looking to charge all those draws. He snap calls, ballooning this pot to $875. If we win this one, we'll be up big to start our day. I roll over my hand like I always do when I'm all in. We're off to a river which rolls out the 9 of spades, counterfeiting our 2 pair. Remember just a few seconds ago when I said the turn card didn't change anything? Well, I was way off because our opponent rolls over 7-4 of diamonds for the turn straight. He called $50 pre-flop with 7-4 diamonds and turned the perfect card to stack us. This game is completely off the rails, which I'd love to see. Only thing to do is add on another $500 bullet after getting stacked, and I'm now into the game for $1,000 total within just 20 minutes. A few orbits went by and the same action player who just stacked us throws on the under the gun straddle, but now makes it $25 to go. So I guess I'm playing in my first high stakes game because the blinds are 1-3-25 for this hand. Action folds all the way to me in the small blind, and I look down at the infamous Ace-King offsuit. My thought at the time was to raise to a size where he'd call with his entire range, and I could play for stacks. So I make it $65 to go. Just our friend in the $25 straddle puts in the call, increasing this pot to $135. Off to a flop out of position of 10-6-5 rainbow, giving us just 2 overcards. Could check, but I honestly think a bet is the best play, so I don't give any of his king jack and queen jack hands a free card to improve. So I throw out a small bet of just $55. Now our opponent wastes no time before going all in and obviously has us covered. He didn't raise earlier with the straight draw, so I'm pretty confident this is a 10 at minimum and I'm in horrible shape. So I toss my hand in the muck, and just like that we light $120 on fire. After failing to hit a set with pocket 7s in a 3-bet pot, we're officially stuck over $700 in a blink of an eye. Need to get something going fast. A few orbits go by, and once again the $25 straddle is on from the same action player. Everyone folds to the hijack who calls the 25, button calls, and I'm in the small blind and look down at king queen offsuit and don't know what the hell to do. Players who called the $25 are rather tight, so they could easily have a pretty big pair or a good ace high hand that has us beat. Don't really like any of my options, but I settle on a call to see what develops. Big blind folds and under the gun checks his option, so we're going 4 ways to a flop of king 8-7 with 2 clubs giving us top pair second best kicker. With $100 already in the pot and about $255 left in my stack, we're going for gold. I lead out for $75 to get value from any worse kings, charge all the different draws available. Action gets folded all the way to the button who goes all in. Never folding since he could be doing this with all different kinds of hands, so I snap call, increasing this pot to 6-10, and we're off to see a run out. Turn rolls out the 9 of spades, which I thought was a rather safe card. The river peels off the 5 of spades. Our opponent rolls over his hand and shows 8-7 of diamonds for flop bottom 2 pair, which has us crushed. Looking back, I guess I could have just jammed pre-flop since I wasn't that deep in terms of big blinds. But I've never been up against this big of a straddle, so I was completely thrown off. But none of that matters because we just got stacked for the second time in less than an hour and need more chips to keep battling. I always stick to a 3 buy-in stop loss since I don't see any good to keep blasting off, so I unload my last $500 clip and I'm now into the game for $1,500 total. About 20 minutes went by. For this hand, I throw on the $6 straddle and a player in early position raises to 25. Folds all the way to the small blind who puts in the call. Now the big blind doesn't think 25 is enough and 3 bets to 150. I'm next to act in the straddle and look down at ace king of hearts. With $200 of dead money out there and sitting here with the premium holding, there's only one move, which is all in. Either I'm going to win a huge pot and look to start a miracle comeback, or I'm going home with empty pockets and hope I have enough spare change in my truck for gas to make it home. Action folds all the way to the big blind who doesn't snap call, which I love to see because at least we know he doesn't have aces. He eventually does stick in the call. We have ourselves a 4-figure pot which will make or break our day. Come to an agreement to run it twice, so we're off to see 2 boards. First flop comes out all red cards, but unfortunately in the diamond variety, and the turn and river don't improve us. My opponent says the first board is his, so I expect he has a big pocket pair. Off to a second board needing at least a king. We get an even better result because we get hit with an ace in the window and the rest of the board runs out all low cards. I was expecting to chop this pot almost every single time. My opponent gives us the bad news and rolls over ace king of diamonds, crushing our soul. He flopped a nut flush on the top board, automatically scooping in half the pot. Then we ended up chopping the second half. So I just got quartered, which is a straight gut punch going up against the same hand. I think it's safe to say I'm getting my ass kicked today. After getting quartered, I'm now down $1,230 and I'm stuck piles. Never played a single tournament in my life, but to use some tournament lingo, we basically have ourselves a chip in a chair. The next hand we get involved in is a local famous $15 bomb pot. Everyone at the table decided to join, which was the least bit surprising for the action we've seen displayed, and I get dealt 5-3 of hearts. With 135 already in the middle, we're going 9 ways to a flop of 8-3-3 with 2 diamonds giving us trips. I'm I'm not a big fan of check raising in bomb pots because ranges aren't defined and someone can easily have better trips, so it's important to lead out with value to target overpairs and flush draws and find out where I'm at. So that's what I do by throwing out a bet of $80 and everyone folds. It's taken me over $1,230 of lighting money on fire, but I finally scooped in a pot. Looking to somehow build off that bomb pot when we see the $6 straddle get put on. Someone in early position calls the $6, and I'm on the button and look down at ace-king offsuit. Raises in order, so I make it $20 to go, get called by the straddler and cut off, increasing this pot to $65. Off to a flop three ways of king, king, queen with 2 diamonds, giving us trips with the best possible kicker. Both players check to me. I decided to throw out a 1/3 size bet of $20 since I'm pretty confident we have the best hand. Both players end up putting in the chips, increasing the spot to $125, so I'm thinking both flush and straight draws are on the table as well as a lot of queen X hands. Keeping that in mind, we're off to a turn which peels off the deuce of clubs, now putting 2 flush draws out there. Under the gun checks, but now the player in the cutoff leads out for a super small bet of $40. Anytime I've seen this move in the past, it usually indicates a player is on a draw, has a middling hand, and wants to set their price to see a cheap river. I'm not having any of that nonsense, so I raise the price of poker to $150, which gets the player from under the gun to fold, but the cutoff snap calls, increasing this pot to $425. I feel like my hand is pretty face up because I'm never raising pocket aces in this spot, so it looks like I have king X all day here. And since our opponent called pretty fast, this feels like a major draw that wants to crack king X at all costs, which is something like the nut flush draw or jack 10 for the straight draw. So I'm hoping for another blank. The river rolls out the single worst card in the deck and the 9 of diamonds, not only bringing in the front door flush, but giving jack 10 the straight. He checks, and I literally think there's nothing to get value from at this point, so I check it back. He's hesitant to show, but eventually rolls over king jack offsuit for worse flop trips. Now I'm feeling a little sick to my stomach with that river. He would have easily called a pretty sizable bet on a blank river, so the stupid 9 of diamonds cost us at least a couple $100. But as I've said in the past, and will continue to say until the day I kick the bucket, I'll never complain anytime money is pushed in my direction. After winning with that ace-king hand, our losses are now only in the triple-digit column, so hoping to at least keep it there and limit the damage. This next hand, a player under the gun opens the action to $16. Player next act calls. When it folds to me in the hijack, I once again look down at ace-king for what feels like the 100th time today. The price of play is about to go up, so I make it $50 to go and get cold called by the action player from the button. This entices the other 2 players to come along for only $34 more, so we're going 4 ways to a flop of ace queen jack with 2 diamonds, giving us top pair top kicker on a very connected board. Since I'm unblocking any flush draws, I decided to throw out a value bet of $75 and just get called by the action player from the button, increasing this pot to $355. This player has had my number all day, so it's time to get some revenge. Off to a turn which isn't the best card in the deck, and the 7 of diamonds bringing in the front door flush. I check to try and pick up any information. He decides to check it back, which I'd love to see because he probably doesn't have any flushes. Off to a river which peels off the 6 of hearts. Now it's time to value bet. I honestly don't think he has many ace X hands after not betting the turn, so I think he has a hand like queen 10 or jack 10 all day here. I decided to throw out a super small bet of just $15, hoping he senses his weakness and raises with all those combos, but he just laughs it off and tosses in a call. I roll over my hand, and it's good. Nice to get some more chips pushed in our direction after that abysmal start.
It's crazy.
For this next hand, the $6 under the gun straddle is on. The action player we've been battling with just calls the $6. Small blind calls, and I'm in the big blind and look down at 40% of a royal flush and king jack of clubs. Good enough for a raise, so I make it $30 to go. Just get called by the action player. $70 in the pot, we're going heads up to a solid flop of jack 3 deuce rainbow, giving us top pair second best kicker. I throw out a standard value bet of $25 to keep most of his range in there, but now he check raises us to $75. I haven't seen him raise a draw all day, so this is most likely a jack to try and find out where they're at. Or at this point, I wouldn't put it past him if he has 3 deuce offsuit for bottom 2 pair. But I'm obviously never folding to this player, so I put in the extra $50, increasing this pot to $220. We're off to a turn which peels off the 4 of clubs, now giving us a flush draw to go along with our pair. I check him flow, now he decides to check it back, which I love to see, because he's gonna still be betting his sets and 2 pairs all day here. So now I'm putting him on a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, and a worse jack. Off to a river hoping for a low club to give us the sneaky backdoor flush, but it peels off the queen of spades, which I wasn't a big fan of. It's going to be super hard for a hand like pocket 8s or pocket 9s to call a bet. Now I'm losing to all his queen jack combos. Don't think there's value to be had, so I check. He ends up checking it back and we have the winner. Probably could have gone for thin value, but would rather give him rope to value own himself. At this point in the day, I've battled back from our low point of being down over $1,230 to now only being down $420, which is over an $800 swing in less than an hour. And what better way to try and complete a miracle comeback by getting involved in a local famous $15 bomb pot. Once again, 9 people decided to join the party. There's $135 in the pot and we get dealt A7 offsuit in early position. Off to a flop of ace-5-4 with 2 clubs, giving us a subpar top pair. It's hard to make a pair, and I need to find out where I'm at, so I throw out a small bet of just $40. Like I said several times before, this game isn't short of action because 3 people put in the call, increasing this pot to $295. I think it's safe to say there's at least 1 club draw in the mix, at least 1 straight draw, and possibly a better ace. Going 4 ways to a turn, which rolls out a super interesting card in the ace of clubs, giving us trips but bringing in the front door flush. I start off with a check since I think there's a good chance I'm beat despite having trips, but surprisingly action gets checked around. So going 4 ways to a river, which rolls out the 9 of spades. Now action gets checked to the player to my right, who decides to bomb it and throw out a massive bet of $250. My hand is a bluff catcher at best. There's a ton of flushes and better aces that could play this way, so I decide to toss my trip aces in the muck and everyone else also folds. Player to my right is nice enough to show his hand, flashes king queen of clubs for the nut flush. Just glad I didn't get married to trips, was able to save some money in the end. Unfortunately, all the action players left to play 5-card PLO, and it was nearing the end of my session anyways, so let's get to the outro.
Let's just say I'm glad we made it out alive and limited the damage in one of the wildest sessions of the year. In for $1,500 and out for $1,038 for a $462 loss.
For day 2, we bought into the 1-2 game for the max of $300. Got off to the slowest start of the year. I was super card dead and couldn't get anything going, so I'm not going to bore you guys with all those small uneventful pots I played in, but luckily that's about to change. At this point in the day, we were about 2.5 hours into our session, only down around $40, which is a huge win given the hands we were dealt. Crazy action player just sat down at the table and threw on the $10 under the gun straddle, which is huge for this game. Under the gun 1 calls the $10, action folds me on the button and I look down at pocket 8s. Good enough for a raise, so I make it $35 to go, get called by the small blind. Action folds to the player who straddled for $10, and he wastes no time before going all in for over $500, having the table covered. Player to his left folds, and I think this is the easiest call of the year since I'm pretty confident this is a squeeze play to try and pick up $80 in dead money because big pairs would have raised smaller. Small blind gets out of the way, and I turn over my hand like I always do when I'm all in, and we're off to see a run out. We waited 2.5 hours for a spot like this. If we scoop, I'll be up over $250, which will help me chip away at these couple big recent losses. $565 in the pot. We're off to a flop, which rolls out 4-4-3 rainbow, which I was super happy with. Till the turn peels off the worst card in the deck and the ace of diamonds, and our opponent wastes no time before showing ace-jack offsuit for turn top pair. We failed to hit the miracle 2-outer and end up getting stacked. Couldn't have asked for a better spot to be in given the setup, just couldn't avoid the overcard. After getting stacked, I added on $300 in chips, so I'm now into the game for $600 in stuck piles. Just a few orbits later, there's 2 limps, and I'm in the cutoff and look down at 10-9 of clubs. Anytime I have a solid suited connector against a limping range, and I have position, the price to play goes up. I make it $15 to go, get called by the big blind and 2 limpers, increasing the spot to 60. Going 4 ways to a flop of Jack 8-6 rainbow, giving us an open-ended straight draw. Player in early position decides to take over the betting lead, throws out a bet of $20. Luckily I have history with this specific player. I'm 99% confident this is top pair all day here. I would love to rep an overpair and put in a semi-bluff re-raise. The problem is we're only $120 deep. I have a better chance of hitting a fastball off of prime Randy Johnson than getting this player to fold top pair. So I proceed with just a call, and everyone else gets out of the way. Off to a turn with exactly $100 in the middle, it rolls out the Jack of clubs, pairing the top card, most likely giving our opponent trips. I was looking to fold to any aggression, but now he throws out the same size bet of just $20. I could still fold since a queen might give him a full house, limiting our outs, but I have position, and if we hit our draw given the right price, I could worry about that later. So I call, increasing this pot to 140, looking for a queen, or preferably a 7, but it comes out a blank in the 3 of clubs. He jams, I fold, and our horrific day gets even worse. I'm now down $370 and getting close to the end of our session, so I'm not looking to complete the comeback all the way, but would love to get some of these losses back in our pocket. For this next hand, under the gun limps, tight player in early position raises to $10. I'm in the button and look down at pocket 9s. Against looser players, this is a 3-bet all day, but the player who limped is a major action player, and I would hate to drive him out of the pot, so I just flat the $10 looking to keep him in. The blinds fold, and as expected, the under the gun player comes along for the ride, increasing the spot to 30. Off to a flop in position of 7-4-3 rainbow, giving us the overpair. Under the gun checks. Early position now checks, which I love to see since he'd probably be betting all his overpairs. So when action's on me, I have a clear value bet to be made. I throw out a half pot bet of $15, just get called by the action player from under the gun, doubling the spot to 60. Off to a turn heads up, which rolls out the king of diamonds. He checks again. A lot of you guys would check it back in this spot, but in my opinion, that would be a huge mistake. Since he called the bet on the flop with the player still left to act, he's not floating with any sort of king, so this turn card shouldn't really change anything. He most likely has a hand like 7-6 or 5-4 for a pair plus straight draw, so it's important to charge those hands and not let them see a free river. But no need to go big since you don't want them to fold, so I throw out a 1/3 pot size bet of $20. He calls pretty quickly. Since he didn't raise, I'm confident we have the best hand, so we're off to a river, which in my opinion is the best card in the deck, and the king of hearts pairing the board. He checks for a 3rd time. Now it's time to go for 3 streets of thin value. Once again, there's no point in betting big since he most likely has a smaller pair than us, so I throw out a bet of $35 and he wastes no time before tossing in the chips. I roll over my hand, and it's good after our opponent tosses his in the muck. Pretty happy with how I read the situation, and I'm finally able to win a decent little pot today. We played for a bit longer, but couldn't get anything going. So let's get to the outro.
It's hard to win when you're card dead most of the session and then lose the biggest pot of the day. In for 600, and out for 295 for a pretty sizable loss of $305.
As for this week in poker, I played a total of 5 hours and 55 minutes and lost $767 for an hourly win rate of negative $129.63. This was obviously a terrible result, but surprisingly it could have been a lot worse. As for our 1-2 stats, I've now played exactly 76 hours even in this game and profited $1,854 for an hourly win rate of $24.39. As for 1-3, I've played 77 hours and 25 minutes and profited $4,044 for an hourly win rate of $52.24. Combining these stats, I've played 153 hours and 25 minutes of live poker and profited $5,898 for an hourly win rate of $38.44. I'm still pretty happy with these overall numbers. A couple big losses like this, we could be in major trouble. Just gotta not pay close attention to the results and focus on playing the best poker I can, which is always easier said than done. Make sure you stay tuned for next week to see if we can get some momentum back on our side. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you guys run good at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my new year-end goal of 25,000 subscribers.